Hi there once again. Love having you with us each and every week for another Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. 3 terms, 1 first. For the first time in Toledo history, a mayor has won a 3rd term. All of it made possible when a grassroots effort in 2024 looked down the road and got the city behind an effort to change the city charter, making it possible for a Toledo mayor to serve 3 terms. And while the charter paved the way for the office itself, the effort was about more than a mayor. It was about this mayor. Wade Kapszukiewicz now begins a new chapter with a longer runway, and I think it's fair to say huger, higher expectations. The mayor kind enough to join us for this edition of Leading Edge. Fair statement to say that charter was about this guy?
I think, given the timing of when it was put on the ballot, there were voters, I'm sure, that probably were thinking about the current mayor and whether they could see the current mayor serving an additional term. So I think my personality might have been part of it, but I think ultimately, and I said it then, and I'll say it again now, I think Toledoans realized then and reaffirmed last week with my reelection that Toledo could benefit from some stability. I really believe that. You look at some of the successful cities in our state and our region, you know, in the 21st century, while Toledo has had 7 mayors, Columbus, universally understood to be the most successful city in our state, they've had 2. And you look around, Sylvania's had the same mayor for, you know, up until recently.
Right.
So I think the voters wanted a chance for some stability, consistency.
It wasn't overwhelming. I mean, because you look back to the vote, it was 55-44, and I mean, there was still that contingent who
for the charter.
For the charter, sure. Yes, correct. So there wasn't everybody who was lock, stock, and barrel on that. However, I did want to read a few things. I reached out to some of the individuals who were really championing this thing to get it through. And I was told, and I'll read this to you, you're hearing this for the first time, for once all groups are working together for the betterment of our community, county, city, Connect Toledo, Convention Center, activation of the downtown. We want to keep the current leadership going so progress is attainable. Next person I talked to, I strongly believe that 2 terms is not enough to enjoy the fruits of structural changes in government programs, initiatives, projects. The research we were examining at the time seems to indicate that you need at least 3 terms to make differences that could be considered sustainable. Kind of what you're hitting on.
Yeah, I think there is some truth to that. And look, ultimately, the voters agreed. The reason that issue got on the ballot was because 10,000 Toledoans signed a petition to put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
Then the reason it passed is because 50,000 more Toledoans voted yes. And then ultimately, the reason we're talking about me having the honor of being the first 3-term mayor is because an additional 20,000 people voted for me to do that. So I know people are going to have opinions about things, especially when it represents change. But at the end of the day, you have to step back and say tens of thousands of Toledoans had a chance to vote on this, and this is the direction they wanted. And I understand it because we are making progress. And I think there's something to be said for stability, consistency, and you saw it in those quotes. So
let me ask you this. Let's turn it around and say you had lost. You got up Wednesday morning and you said to yourself, damn it, I didn't get to do blank. What would that have been?
I would have said to myself, I didn't get a chance to build on the momentum that Toledo clearly has. You know, we're a top 10 city in this country, top 10 in the nation for new business investment 8 out of the last 11 years. You know, the 900 jobs that are coming to Jeep are a part of that. The fact we're fixing 15 times more roads than we ever have before. The fact that from a public safety perspective, every category of crime we measure has gone down 4 years in a row. And actually, just 2 weeks ago, we found out that our bond rating was increased again for the 2nd straight year in a row. We now have the highest bond rating we've had since 1980. Only twice in Toledo's history, 1953 and 1967, have we ever had a higher bond rating than we do now. I would have woken up the day after the election had I lost and just felt, first of all, honored that I ever had the chance to do this, but frustrated that we didn't have a chance to continue that momentum and build toward what I think is as bright a future as any city in this country has. I think we are ready. In fact, I know we are ready to grow as a city. That's going to be my focus going forward. And maybe I would have lamented that we didn't have the chance to put the housing piece in place that is going to allow us to grow our population, which is really the final piece of the puzzle. I would have been happy either way,
yeah,
but those would have been my thoughts.
Election night, did you call the campaigns of your opponents sloppy?
I don't remember saying sloppy. I may have said that. I did say, I remember giving them a lot of credit, actually. I said that they were earnest and cared about Toledo. I think, I don't remember how my words exactly came out, but I think I remember the context. I do remember saying that they were both first-time candidates. They had never run for office before, and they made, for me, someone who's done this a few times, I noticed throughout the campaign they were making some mistakes, mistakes that I know cost them votes, and they were just making, I guess you'd call them rookie mistakes.
Did you get calls from them congratulatory?
Nope. No, I never have, actually. I've been
all the time.
I've been elected mayor 3 times and have never got I'm still waiting for Cardi to call to concede the election from 4 years ago. I don't think that call's ever coming.
You touched on safety services. I want to ask about that specifically because I pulled a report that we did in 2018 where the U.S. Department of Justice said that at that time, in 2018, when you first came into office, 602 officers in the Toledo Police Force calling that scenario dangerous, saying that those are dangerously low numbers. Sitting here today, we're hovering around that same number of officers in the department. How are we not still dangerously low?
I remember that word dangerous because I cited it several times during my first race in 2017. We're actually a little higher than that. We're not at 602. We're closer to 630 actually right now. Not that it's much higher.
With a goal of 650 to 700?
Yes. You're citing a Department of Justice study that says for a city with a population of our size,
right,
we should be at about 660. Actually, the Blade has reported on this a couple times over the years, and they get the number wrong. They keep saying the number is 700. I'd love 700. The real sweet spot is 660. So when I became mayor, there were 585. We had dipped below even the 602. In my time as mayor, we have grown the police force by a net of 50 officers. Now, that might not seem like much, but for the 22 years prior to me taking office, the size of the force had gradually declined. To have grown it by a net gain of 50, it's not like we just had a police class of 50.
Plus, we've lost population too, right? So that's like a moving target?
It is a moving target, but 660 is still the number we want to be at. We've done the hard work to grow the size of the force. It needs to be larger. No one's done more to make it larger than I have. So we're higher than we were, not where we want to be, but there's no question our crime numbers are going down, and the growth of our police department, the fact we have more cops on the street, is part of the reason why.
A lot I want to cover with you. I want to talk specifically about seeing you last night. We are taping this on Thursday. Midweek Maction at the University of Toledo, and we have that video to show. But you were there, and the only reason I bring it up, and you probably haven't seen this yet, where you actually fall in the tank. I think you say, "Let's go," and then the hammer drops. But Wade, I ask you, Mr. Mayor, I ask you because leading up to this, there was a move by the city of by the University of Toledo to rescind a job offer to one Carrie Hartman, former city council president, and you said that move will hurt our relationship with the University of Toledo. Have you made nice with the University of Toledo?
Oh, I did say that. I believed it when I said it, and actually, it is true. I do think what happened with Carrie has hurt the relationship. Doesn't mean that the relationship is over. It just means that there was a bump in the road. I compare our relationship with the university to, a family. You don't always like your family members, but you always love them. We love the University of Toledo. Sometimes we don't like each other a little bit. There was that was a much ado about nothing thing in terms of that remark. I had a great time. Maybe not a great time when I was in the ice-cold tub of water.
Yeah.
I had a great time at the game. I had wonderful conversations with members of the Board of Trustees, with the president. There's no...
But was there that moment of pause between you and President Holloway at all? Or?
No, never.
Okay.
I talked, before I gave that quote, I talked to members of the Board of Trustees and folks from the president's office. I told them ahead of
what you were feeling,
and told them that if anyone asked me my opinion about what happened, what I was going to say, and it's okay. Like I said, you love your family, you don't always like them. Yeah. And I would chalk this up to this. Look, I still feel badly for what happened to Carrie, and I just don't. Well, it's just a shame. It's a shame what happened, but it doesn't, look, we're linked to the University of Toledo. They wear our name on their team's jerseys, and we're going to sink or swim together. But I tell you, there are members of council who were, their quotes, had they made it in the newspaper, would have been a lot worse than mine.
Yeah, little blue?
There are some hard feelings, and that's what I was referring to. I mean, we do things together, and I don't know if everyone knew the facts of what happened here. I don't know. Well, everything's going to be fine. Everything is fine. Sometimes you just have to call them how you see them.
I got it. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to spend the entire show here with Mayor Wade Kapszukiewicz, once again going into a third term. Historic here in the city of Toledo. When we come back, I want to talk about housing. He brought that up and some other matters. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. In this next segment, I really wanted to focus, Mayor, talking a little bit business strategy for this third term. I think you were already wrapping your mind around that because you said you guys have been talking about housing. Mm-hmm. It's not, real estate, you hear location. We know the location. It's just how do you get the housing in place? Where do you put it? Mm-hmm. One of the things that came up before Toledo Rotary not too many weeks ago, you made comment about over on Heather Downs with a couple of golf courses over there, and there was a lot of talk after that happened. Now, whether your tongue was in your cheek, whether you were talking specifics of things that were in motion, but I guess the landlocked question is, if you create housing, where does it go?
Toledo, more than anything else, needs housing, and we probably don't have enough time in the program to go over all the reasons, but essentially think about it in these terms. Just like any city, we face some budget realities. Heck, even Columbus, a city I referenced earlier as the clear #1 example of a successful city in Ohio, they're going to the ballot next year to have to raise taxes there in Columbus. That's the pressures of cuts from the federal government, uncertainty, has caused them, even Columbus has to go and ask for more taxes. So the reason I've talked about housing so much is we have those same financial pressures, and I guess we could solve them in one of two ways. We could raise taxes, which no one wants, or we could add more taxpayers to our city, which everyone should want. The way to do that is to grow our population. Everyone knows Toledo is in that part of the country, the snow belt, rust belt. I think we should call ourselves the water belt. But for 70 years, cities from Buffalo to Grand Rapids, Fort Wayne, Toledo, Milwaukee, heck, even Chicago has lost about 1 million people in the last 2 generations. Population has shifted away from this part of this country. But there are examples of some cities that have started to turn the corner. We think we could be that next city. The studies we show say that it's not a question of demand, it's a question of supply. If we had about 10,000 more units of housing in this city, we'd have 10,000 more Toledoans. And we want that because, for all the reasons you can imagine, we want it. So your point is, where would it go? I think we have to be creative. I think converting old office towers and warehouses needs to continue. Repurposing. There's one neighborhood of Toledo that is exploding in growth. We don't think of it as a neighborhood, but it is the new neighborhood of downtown. And the warehouse district has grown by about 30% this century.
But I think people would say, okay, Mayor, I'm tired of hearing about all the refurbishing of downtown. What about our neighborhoods? Because, Mayor, I'll tell you, I grew up here. I have neighborhoods on the north side, on the west side, that they have looked the exact same for 50 years.
I agree. I know. I live in one of those neighborhoods. My parents live in one of those neighborhoods. We don't do what we do in downtown because we love downtown only. We do it because it can bring an energy to the rest of the city. So if we add Toledoans, that lowers the tax burden on folks living from Point Place to Beverly, the Old West End, everywhere in between. Yeah. I only started with downtown as one example of what we could do, but I do think, in addition to that, you mentioned that we're landlocked, and you're right. I think we can be creative in how we repurpose some of our green space. Back to your golf course thing, there is nothing imminent about any golf course anywhere in Toledo, much less the ones on Heather Downs. I think where there might have been some confusion is because in that speech I talked about the city's efforts about 6-7 years ago when the Tamaron golf course north of Alexis Road in West Toledo closed. We were really interested in getting our hands on those acres
for housing
and platting it into a subdivision that could have created 700 new Toledoans. As it turns out, the Washington local school system beat us to the punch, and good for them. We need more athletic fields. But that's the kind of thinking we need to do. these aren't going to be huge projects, but there are spaces where our school systems used to have schools built. They still own the land, but maybe the school building has moved 200 yards. Remember about 20 years ago, the state of Ohio would pay 77% or 77 cents on the dollar for the construction of a new school. That's why Toledo, essentially, with the exception of Waite and Scott, have all new schools.
Right.
Well, what that did was it created a whole bunch of new schools, modern and up to date.
Part of the tobacco settlement as well.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But those schools, in almost every case, moved a quarter of a mile this way or that. Well, the land where the old school used to sit is generally owned by school systems, whether it's Washington Local or TPS, and they don't necessarily have hopes or dreams for that land. We may.
Yeah.
So I can tell you there's in the central city, the old Fulton School. That we are talking right now with Toledo Public about trying to acquire that site for, a project that could bring, 50 or 60 units of housing online. It might not sound like much, but if you find little sites like that, you start adding them up.
Yeah.
Like Everett Dirksen, the old senator from Illinois, once said, $1 million here, $1 million there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. 60 new Toledoans here, 60 new Toledoans there. Pretty soon you started to grow your population. So there's more green space in our town than you might think. We don't have the soybean fields that our suburban friends have.
Right.
But we got little plots of green here and there that I think if we want to succeed as a city, you can start seeing some housing pop up there. That's our focus.
Have you as a lifer, me as a lifer, do we have to get out of our heads there's not going to be another Owens Corning, there's not going to be another OI, there's not going to be another, First Solar's obviously down in the Perrysburg Township, Perrysburg area, there's not going to be another Jeep. Have you, from a business model standpoint, and as mayor, when you're working with RGP, when you're working with these suburban mayors and government to try to bring in business and looking to make joint economic development zones, are you going for big fish or are you trying to hit singles just to bring in the runs?
I think it's both. I think a good baseball player, Babe Ruth hit a lot of singles in addition to hitting a lot of home runs. I think our story is the same. We've had, again, our economic development success over the last 10 years, it really is remarkable. Again, 8 out of the last 11 years, we've scored in the top 10 in the nation for new business investment. And you might say, well, where? How? Maybe we forget, but it wasn't too long ago. The old Southwick Mall was an abandoned, vacant mall. There was nothing good happening. You drive by there, now there are Amazon jobs.
Right.
The Northtown Mall was even in a worse state of disrepair. You drive by there now, and there's a tier 1 supplier, Mobis, to the auto industry. There's nothing more exciting in our community right now than I think what's happening along the riverfront with the Glass City Metro Park. It was 8 years ago, there was still a road leading to nowhere.
Yeah.
So all of these things, first of all, they take time, but they have all converted what had been abandoned brownfield space into pretty exciting job opportunities. So we'll take, whether it's Mobis or whether it's a mom and pop candle shop in East Toledo, we'll take anything. I think the real potential for major growth will come in the form of our
About 15 seconds.
partnerships with our suburban neighbors.
Yeah.
We have the water that they don't have. They have the land that we don't have. That's why the new CIC we formed, because of a deal we put together with Rossford, has a way to benefit both communities. These mega sites, these mega employers are going to locate in those parts of our region. We can benefit from that because we bring water to the table that places like Rossford don't have.
I know this is a loaded question. Are data centers the answer?
I don't think data...
Got to be a quick answer.
They could be.
Yeah.
They could. I guess here, if you want a quick answer, it depends.
Okay. Stay right there. We'll wrap things up for this episode right after this. Welcome back as we continue to talk with Toledo Mayor Wade Kapszukiewicz here on Leading Edge. You were kind enough the last time we had a chance to sit down at One Government Center. You and I talked about a lot of stuff. We were revisiting the fact that it had been 5 years since the pandemic. But what I want to ask you is, at that time, you were very candid. And you opened up to me and talked about GLP-1 use. And this past week, President Trump talking about the lowering of drug prices as far as those drugs are concerned, Wegovy, Zepbound. Does that impact you going forward? What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously you opened up to us and said, I do use Zepbound.
I think from my personal story,
You have gone through a transformation, and I think
have.
everybody knows that.
there's less of me to vote for now than there was a couple of years ago. I think those drugs, the Zepbound, Ozempic, whatever they're, in my case, I think they helped start the process. I'm only speaking for myself. What has allowed it to accelerate and to last as long as it did is that I have really gotten into exercise. Now, I don't want to make it sound it was all exercise,
Right.
but it wasn't all just the drug. It was.
Are you still taking it?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
How long do you have to? How long does one have to stay on that?
I think I could go off it any time I wanted. But I think I could stay on it indefinitely. As conversations with my doctor seem to indicate, it's kind of up to me.
We got about 30 seconds.
But I know that. I mean, I bike 20 miles a day every day, and I am, based on what my doctors tell me, it's really that part of my routine that is the real. I think I would have lost a little bit of weight if it was just the Zepbound. The fact I've lost so much is because last year I biked 6,300 miles, the equivalent of biking from the equator to the North Pole.
Plus using Zepbound and being an aide.
But there was a time when I was only doing Zepbound without any exercise. I lost a little. I bumped it up to what I have lost really because of the exercise.
In our last 15 seconds, what do you want to achieve in the first quarter?
The first quarter? Or
First quarter of 26.
I want to, again, continue the momentum that we've seen, but really start to put some projects together on housing that can allow us to grow our population. That's going to be the focus.
Announcements coming, maybe?
We're doing a lot of work. Whether we're going to be able to announce things, I'm not sure, but this will be the focus of my final 4 years.
Mayor, thanks for stopping by.
All right, thank you.
We'll be back. Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Just send an email to our address. It's Leading Edge, all one word, at WTOL.com. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jeff Smith. Until next time, listen, learn, and lead.